Here's what happened. It is not a soft year to be a small business owner. We have an affordability crisis. The US national debt is over $38 trillion. As of this past weekend, we are at war with Iran, and I am not an interventionist. Regime change is not as easy as it's sold to us, the general public. It almost always results in further involvement. We can look at the example of the mess that happened in Iraq. And then we are also experiencing, we're seeing massive amounts of fraud in our government. I've talked about it before here on the show, Minnesota, and the estimates that are coming out of 9 billion. And then now in other states, there are stories that are coming out. If that's in California, to Maryland, to Maine. And so there is a lot of chaos. There is massive change that is happening. And I've shared that before here on the show that it has been 65 to 80 years to get us to this point in history where massive change is going to happen, and it is happening. We're witnessing it. We're witnessing the fourth turning, and we're part of that experience. And so as small business owners, we have to decide what is going to be America's future. And with this movement is making America's future a small business renaissance. When small businesses are thriving, the quality of life of our communities improves. And there is a lot that is going on, not only here in the US, around the world. And so this is a moment where we got to continue to unite and bring together. There are 36 million small businesses, and we got to bring ourselves together for being able to communicate through a big voice of what it is that we want to focus on for America's future. And one is, again, coming back to the fraud, and I've talked about that on the show with Minnesota. But I want to start this week with the ownership series of where we left off, which was taxes. And when we are experiencing a lot of chaos out there, when we simplify our environment, that can make our life a lot easier. And an area that we can focus on to simplify are taxes. And you may think it's crazy and like, oh, we're talking about taxes here of like some massive changes that can happen, but it is not crazy to question whether we should keep certain taxes, if certain taxes make any sense anymore. Hospitality tax, as an example, on a local level in your city, you may be experiencing it. You may be a small business owner that has to deal with that. That in South Carolina, I shared that last week. It's less than 50 years old. These taxes, there are people that are still alive that lived during a time when this tax did not exist. And so we can question whether we should continue to have certain taxes. That is not crazy, as it might be told to us, or it may not be something we have to be placed in a box for, saying that we don't want taxes. So when someone either puts a label on you or calls you crazy or is saying, hey, trust the experts, which we know how that turned out with something like COVID, it's something where you can push back as a small business owner and realize that you don't have to be told that you're dumb. You can be informed. You are not stupid. You can take the time to do the research and understand what is going on. And with this show, an important habit to hold on to as a small business owner is when something doesn't make sense, get curious and ask questions. Because by asking questions, we're able to continue to understand what is the truth. And the truth is so important now more than ever. And we got to continue to preserve the individual rights that we have here in this country, like the freedom of speech, to be able to have these type of conversations and to be able to talk about this stuff. So with taxes, it goes back to fraud. Like, does it make sense for the amount of money that we as taxpayers are paying the U.S. government if we're experiencing fraud in a lot of different areas? And you don't have to just take my word for it. I want to share with you a clip here from a Joe Rogan interview with RFK Jr., the Secretary of HHS, and let him share what's going on when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. So let me get this set up for you. So here we go.
Place. We lose just in Medicaid and Medicare $100 billion a year. And it's all just this really, shocking, blatant fraud.
$100 billion, just one example. And we are seeing it in so many different states, other areas, other stories about fraud. And so what I believe we would be shocked by is if we actually were able to look behind the curtains, we would be shocked at actually how much money it really takes to run the government, from a federal level down to the state, down to the local level. And somehow there can be a massive uproar and people can go crazy when you start to questioning, hey, maybe we don't need as big of a budget for running our governments. And that is something where, as small business owners, the amount of different taxes you got to pay is something we got to push back on. Because if we can also simplify, even on the federal level, the U.S. federal tax code, and take it from over 4,000 pages down to 400 or 4 pages, that simplifies the environment. And then from there, what could happen with, one, the amount of money that we are saving, and then two, what can happen when we don't feel so much stress? If it would be every month having to send a check for sales tax, or make a payment for the sales tax collected or for hospitality tax collected to your government, what would that be like? And then figuring out what are some other creative, innovative solutions to move forward. If that is a combination of tariffs to property taxes, ways that we can continue to support government functions that we, because I believe in a safety net, but not something that turns into cabana. But to start to question that or have conversations about that, it's not crazy. It's actually common sense. And it's important because it's your tax-paying dollars to be able to understand, where is this money actually going, and where is the transparency? And then again, if we were to ask this question of, do we trust our elected officials, our politicians, to have our best interest? Usually that answer starts with a no. And it's something where, if that's the case, why aren't we having more conversations about this? Why aren't we talking about this more? And it's something where, as small business owners, we are early adopters when it comes to forms of technology, new habits to implement, strategies to implement in the business. Why can't we also be early adopters in this area of being informed and helping to continue to share our voice in the political landscape as well, and make sure that we're pushing forward and communicating and holding accountable our elected officials to do what's in the best interest of the American citizens, because the government is there to serve us, the American citizen, and we cannot forget about that. So that was shocking to hear that from RFK Jr. and the estimates in those two areas. But let me get into then FICA tax, and I'm going to talk more about this later on this week as well, like, and not just FICA tax, but again, other taxes, and making sure that we are really understanding what we're dealing with for the environment, because a lot of times we could keep ourselves in our small world, and then also go back to trusting what other people are telling us rather than taking the time to be informed. And in this area, it can actually be really helpful to be informed, because then if we can simplify the environment we're dealing with, we can experience a lot of relief. So two areas that, so with FICA tax, that is a payroll tax. And so if you have employees, you're having to deal with that. And it's covering Social Security and Medicare. I spoke about this last week with Social Security, where the Congressional Budget Office had estimates, or has an estimate that the Social Security will basically be insolvent by 2032. So already we're putting money into a system that eventually isn't going to work out, and that is coming up really fast. And so this is the time to prepare for that and to make massive changes here. And then with the fraud that was talked about from RFK Jr. in Medicare, this is another thing where we got to figure out, okay, does it make sense anymore to have this tax there for these two purposes, or could we find funds in other areas? And I believe we can. I mean, one area that we could look towards is property taxes, and specifically increasing the share of home ownership. So from the last quarter of 2025, and I've talked about home ownership, the importance of owning equity in this country, or having equity in this country, because if you don't own anything, then what is there to defend here in the U.S.? And between owning something and then renting, there's a deeper level of care for something that you own rather than just renting. Doesn't mean you don't care about the apartment that you're renting, but there's a deeper level. And so right now, or as of last quarter, in last year, in the last quarter, home ownership is around 66%. And so there is room here for improvement. And we got to figure out solutions so that we don't go into a housing crisis. Because back in the early 2000s, the highest percentage was around 69%. So we got to make sure that we are doing this in a sustainable way. But if you increase the pool of homeowners, then for taxes, that's a way that we could increase taxes. And it's something that we have to have conversations about and think more about. And then the other one is the U.S. government. The amount of growth that has happened has been dramatic. And with anything that gets big, it can become easily corrupt and become very inefficient. And you can think about that for certain government programs in your own life, or going to like the DMV, for example, and notice the inefficiencies that can come up. So what I found out when I did some more research was that back in the late 1950s, the amount of U.S. government employees was around 9 million. Today, it is around 23 million. It's like 23.2 million. So to give you an example from a general population's perspective, back in the late 1950s, it was 178 million. And then today, the population is around 342 million. And so if you were to see like how those numbers balance out, there is a massive growth in employees. And with the developments of new technologies like AI, again, I get wary about that for bringing AI into government. And I've talked about that before here on the show with agentic AI. But is there ways where we can become more efficient? And I don't think that's crazy, or it's not like we're wanting a bunch of people to get laid off and then have no work. Well, why not go into the private sector and support small businesses? Like, these are the conversations that we can have. It is not crazy to have that. And just, where do things not make any sense? But how can that then help with the budget? Where is there spending that doesn't need to happen in different areas? And this is going from a local, state, federal level. And U.S. small business owners, I said it before, America's future leaders are small business owners. And for you to just take some time to be informed about this and understand what's going on in your local area at state level to federal level, and you to then share your voice, it has a big impact. It does. And you cannot forget that. No matter what people tell you of, you can't control this, like, don't get involved, focus on your own quality of life. Well, if we don't have a country, then the quality of life, that we're having a totally separate conversation than just like, how do I make my day a little bit better? Okay. This is something where we got to take the time to focus on and be informed. And again, my goal is to help you to be able to do that. And so that gives you an idea of like a possibility. And then the other one is the actual FICA tax. It was created in 1935, and this was created as part of President FDR's Social Security Act. And then at the time, it was like 1% for employee, and then 1% for the employer. And then now it's you can look at the jump in the percentages, and around 6%, if I remember right, like 12% around there. That's a massive jump too for the rate. And so it's already going. Social Security's the estimates are basically saying it's going insolvent by 2032. The rate is massively increased for this payroll tax. And then we have a lot of fraud happening in Medicare. This just doesn't make sense. So we got to get curious. We got to ask more questions. So I'm going to continue to share more about the different taxes from last week. Again, we're going to take a few more of these in this series, a few more of these episodes to be able to dive deeper into this, because I want to lay down that understanding for you, lay down the groundwork so that we can have a better idea of, okay, what could be potential solutions moving forward. Because when we are thriving as a society and as a country, the quality of life for Americans, we can then focus on raising the overall quality of life of all Americans. Because I've said it before, when small businesses are thriving, the quality of life of our communities improve. And I believe small businesses are the heart of the economy. And when we are able to unite and move forward, massive, meaningful change can happen. And we're already experiencing change. So why not just channel that change in a way where we can make America's future a small business renaissance and push back against all the mess that has unfolded? And it is absolutely possible. It's going to take a lot of hard work and it's not going to come right away. But when we unite through this movement, amazing things can unfold. And so another, I want to share with you this too from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk really, from looking at his videos and understanding more about the economy through his videos, through his posts, I started to wake up more and realize just how amazing this system that we are built on, a capitalistic a system of capitalism, how amazing it is. Can it be taken advantage of? Absolutely. Is there crony capitalism? Yes. And then has there been a big push for socialist traits within our country? Yes. But this one is really powerful. I want to share with you for an X post, and it can also help us with the importance of economic freedom. So I'm going to read it here for you. Just because someone gets rich doesn't mean anyone gets poor. The socialist myth of the fixed pie is not based in reality. Allowing economic freedom means new wealth can be created out of nothing and everyone benefits. And so that quote, actually, let me get back up here. Let me get it back up here for you. So going back to that first line, just because someone gets rich doesn't mean anyone gets poor. We've got to get back to celebrating entrepreneurship, starting a small business, pursuing the American dream, and celebrating that, because it is so true that just because someone gets rich doesn't mean anyone gets poor. Actually, capitalism has lifted billions of people out of poverty in the last 100 years, and we've got to realize that we can, as small business owners, when we're thriving in our communities, and then if it's continuing to hire more employees, to supporting other businesses, keeping the money locally, circling locally in the economy, the quality of life of Americans can rise, and it doesn't mean just because one person or one group of people is getting rich doesn't mean anyone gets poor. And that's such a myth with this fixed pie. And we can really expand that out into new opportunities for wealth, especially with new technologies. That's gonna happen. Where there's gonna be new jobs created. It's part of history with developments. If it was the internet, you notice that with social media. And yes, those come with the challenges that we gotta make sure we have guardrails on, and that goes back to our moral values, remembering those and make sure we're focusing on that as a country. But then there can be amazing opportunities, and with opportunities can come rewards. And as small business owners, we got to continue to push the innovation and continue to be builders for the future. And again, make America's future a small business renaissance. All right, guys. I'm going to talk more this week about ownership in different areas, not just in taxes, but in other areas such as our privacy relating back to technology, and especially with the developments of AI. And then continue to keep you updated on any major developments when it comes to this war with Iran. Continuing to pray for all of us, and especially praying too for our military forces that are involved in this war. And then I will also share more in this ownership series with technology and privacy. Also, the importance of continuing to be aware of what is happening for the potential futures, where I think of dynamic pricing as an example with AI, and how we want to create more predictability and stability in the future, not more chaos, not more uncertainty in the future. And technology is a big part of this moving forward. And as small business owners, there's a way we can leverage human first in now a world that includes AI. And this is something that I think is a very pressing conversation we need to have more of, and especially to be able to take this opportunity as small business owners to differentiate, especially in marketing, as well, to make sure that we're focused on human first. It doesn't mean that, again, AI, it's out of the box, it's not going back in the box, but we got to have more conversations about this. All right, guys. Also, if you are a small, as small business owners, if you want to connect with other small business owners that care about this country and similar to me, believe this is the greatest country in the world. I'm not just saying that. It comes back to generosity, comes back to the economic opportunities we have here, the ability to start a business, and our individual rights, like our freedom of speech. We've got to continue to preserve those rights that we have, and continue to preserve our Western civilization. So I had it up here. Here we go. Here it is. So you can join us at A Future Fest, January 14th, 15th, 2027 in Charleston, South Carolina. Join over 300 other small business owners who care about this country. You can go again to this link, A Future Fest, to reserve your spot. And I'm excited to be able to see you in Charleston next year. And it's going to be such an incredible event. A lot of amazing developments are going to be happening at this event for how to move forward, strategies to tactics, not just for your own business of how to build business that lasts, but also how do we continue to build a country that's going to last for years to come, and make sure that we personally, in our own health and overall quality of life, we can last through building the small business as well, and not burn out and not have to let go of the business or be forced to let go of the business. And be able to continue to move forward and grow and build. All right, guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow.